Here's why I left the Catholic Church and Christianity behind. How could I ever follow an organization that forcefully converted indigenous people all around the world? They were so successful that majority of the Americas practices some form of Catholic or Christian system. Instead of following our true connection, people were forced to follow a book filled with horribly translated stories or face death. Wake up and see the truth.
Let's talk about it. Definitely talk about it.
This is one of my primary reasons that I left Christianity. Is that follow me with this logic. You know that your ancestors were forced into this religion through slavery or through conquest. Your family, were forced into this religion, not by choice, not by evangelism, not because some deity came and split some water, rained down some manna from heaven, none of that, but by conquest. Your family members, your ancestors, you are real religion because somebody came and forced it on you. I was watching this episode of Queen of the South, and the colonel was talking to the governor, and he was remarking to the governor about how the conquistadors came in and massacred their people and took from them their traditional religions and gave them this Catholicism. Yet they still follow this religion. Whether you come from Catholicism or Protestantism, it was forced on your ancestors. How do you still follow it? That is the most illogical thing until you think about how much people are like sheep and will just go along with whatever the program is, rarely get out and think for themselves, rarely consider that what they've been practicing is wrong just because their grandparents practiced it, just because their parents practice it. And then the other component is the fear component. If I don't worship this God, then I will go to hell. If I don't worship this God, I will lose my family members. If I don't worship this God, I will lose my friends. If I don't worship this God, what God do I go and worship at this point then? Because of this fear of losing things, instead of recognizing the freedom that you gain from walking away from a religion that was forced on you, forced on your ancestors, instead of gaining your peace and gaining your sanity, being relieved. Most of you don't know what it's like to be relieved of this fear of hell. You think that you are because you believe in your deity. You think that you don't fear hell. But if you took hell out of the equation and you started researching the wisdom of this book, the goodness, so-called goodness of this God that says that, hey, if you don't do what I tell you to do, if you don't worship me, if you don't love me, then I'm going to send you to eternal punishment. This God that says that if you truly love me, you would leave your mother and your father, you would leave all of your possessions, and you would follow me. That this God that tells you that the only relationship that matters is your relationship with it, that his body becomes bread and this wine becomes blood, and you take a human sacrifice in order for you to have your salvation. This religion, that in the original incarnation of this God performed many genocides, killed many babies, flooded the world, does not understand science to which we know today, that you have a higher moral compass than it. That God, if you took that out of the equation, took hell out of the equation, it is not a deity that you would ever worship. So if hell didn't exist, there is no hell, to which there is no proof of hell, as there is as much proof of hell as there is as much proof of heaven. So without hell existing, would you worship this God? That is the freedom. Once you realize that hell does not exist, then there is absolutely no logical nor emotional way that you can find in order to worship this God. The only other reason you would do it would be because of creature of habit, because of the hypnotic rhythm that you've been indoctrinated into to worship this God, because that's what you was born into, that's what you were taught, that's what you were surrounded by in your world. And then an emotional thing happened, triggered your response to what you've already been seeing all around you, and you began to worship this deity. When you look at the claims of every religion, makes the same claims, then how can one be right and the 4,199 are all wrong? But you, luckily, God blessed you to find the right one. Truly, you have to understand that you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.